Hey guys, the doctrine this week is sanctification. Sanctification is a progressive process God uses to change and mature a believer. Even though we are set apart as God's people, we will continually struggle with sin. As we've looked at Jacob through this mini study that we've been going through, we have seen God persistently pursue Jacob to confront his self-will, call him to submission, and to grow his faith. The lesson this week allowed us to observe growth in Jacob and God's loving sanctification at work. Much of the sanctification process, almost like the making of a wedding cake, the process goes unseen. When you see this finished wedding cake in all of its splendor, with either flowers flowing down the side of it or whatever theme the bride has picked to put into that cake, we forget about the baking of it. We forget the adding of the milk, the eggs, the flour, and all of the baking. And those first actions are essential to the process. They have to be done before we have the cake. The Holy Spirit's work on a Christian begins in the heart and with the renewing of the mind. With those underpinnings, the world begins to see changed behaviors. What is our role in the sanctification process? Prayer, faith, obedience, and surrender open us to change and maturing through the work of the Holy Spirit. If we attempt to take charge of the sanctification process, we will be frustrated and sad, because we're going to recognize that even like the bakers, or in my case, I like to watch a lot of baking shows, so I've seen this. There will be problems if we go without a recipe, or if we attempt a large, tedious, glamorous wedding cake without the help of a professional, we've never done it. But when we trust the work will be done by God, and we surrender to His plans, knowing He doesn't love us because we are being sanctified, but His sanctification is because He loves us. We can rest assured that He will complete the good work He has begun in us. So, how do we apply this as leaders? Suffering and struggle contribute to our sanctification. How might God be using failure or current struggles to grow you into Christ-likeness? Struggles and frustrations do not necessarily mean we are out of God's will. Being in God's will can bring conflict. And what do you do when you find yourself caught between your will and God's way? How much do you actively surrender to the power of the Holy Spirit in that teachable moment? I'm going to repeat that one because that one would really hit me. What do you do when you find yourself caught between your will and God's way? How do you actively surrender to the power of the Holy Spirit in that teachable moment? Our ongoing battle with sin makes us long for the full deliverance God has promised us. Those who are being sanctified will continue to fight against their sinful nature. We have been sanctified, but we are not yet fully sanctified. Both are true. Let me repeat that one again. We have been sanctified, but we are not yet fully sanctified, and both of those statements are true. When the Holy Spirit lives in you, your mind wants to obey, and yet your flesh fights against you. What causes you to act in your own strength rather than in independence on the Holy Spirit? What does this reveal about how you view God's love, His power, His strength, or trustworthiness? Be encouraged. The struggle is a sign of the Spirit's work in your life. So let's go out this week, surrender to God, and be watchful for opportunities to magnify God and mature His women in our relationship with Him and others. You'll have a great week.